Live at Lunch is produced by KRFC 88.9 FM in the Ginger and Baker Studio in Fort Collins, Colorado, and supported by the Music District, a music-centric gathering place to cultivate talents, support professional development, and encourage connections. Welcome to Live at Lunch. I'm your host today, David V., here on KRFC 88.9 FM. And Live at Lunch today is very happy to have our special guest, Justin Roth.
This winter, so cold. This long night is getting old. I'm hanging on down to the wire, singing for the dawn with a midnight choir. Though days grow shorter, seem longer still, more dark makes way for more bitter chill. But I keep on trying to stay warm. I got a feeling it won't be long. I know in springtime the tulips bloom and birds sing with new brightened plumes. So till the sun melts this deep mire, I'll keep on waiting. I'll keep on waiting, and I'll feed this fire. This winter was so cold. All right, that was called This Winter. It's a little older song of mine that I reworked or reharmonized, added some effects pedals to, had a little fun with some exploration. I'm going to move on to another tune here. But I need a different axe, different kind of tree to chop down here. Actually, this is more of not a tree. It's a small little shrub, a little new sprout. This is a song about my daughter when she was just under a year old, working on learning how to walk. Tiny hands, little feet, button nose and rosy cheeks. She's got me wrapped around her finger. I love the way she toddles round the kitchen floor, just like a drunkard that's never been this drunk before. But she's curious, she keeps me on my toes. She's precocious, I can't believe what she already knows. My baby, she's standing on her own. Can't believe how fast she's growing, it's crazy. My little lady, when she falls down, she gets back up. She's my one sure love. Blonde hair and blue eyes, cute round belly and toothless smile, always drooling back at me. She tries to eat everything she finds on the floor. She's slamming fingers in cabinets and drawers, but she's clever. She can always find a way. She's calm, even playing in her room alone. She's bold, every chance that she can take, and she's beautiful. I can't believe what we have made. My baby, she's standing on her own. Can't believe how fast she's growing, it's crazy. My little lady, when she falls down, she gets back up. She's my one sure love.
Justin Roth here on KRFC 88.9 FM's Live at Lunch. Nice to have you today. Thanks for dropping in.
Great to be here with you, David. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Raised in Minnesota. How the heck did you work your way out here to Colorado?
Well, word got out that winters don't have to be painful.
Although lately,
well, it's actually familiar to me when it gets that cold. But I actually I had been touring out here for a number of years. Lived out here shortly back in like 2000 for about a year, but I was basically on the road most of the time. So Colorado was always like a second home, or the state that I went to the most frequently outside of Minnesota, Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. But then years later, I met my wife, who was living here, and she was also from Minnesota. We didn't know each other back then, but she was here, and I was like, I love Colorado.
Karma.
Yeah, I'll come on out here. I don't report to work at the same place every day, so I'll go to the next place I love.
And that was my next question. Have you, right out of high school, you were always just playing music? You know, didn't go to college or any formal schooling?
So no, I went to college. Trying to appease my parents to make sure I was looking for something
the real job.
What they make you study?
Yeah, what's that?
What did they make you study?
Well, it's all sound advice. And so what I ended up finding was a way to create my own degree, a music business degree, at the college. And I was booking acoustic music on campus, and then I started after college. I would help promote shows in the summertime. And one of the people, a guitar player by the name of Billy McLaughlin, I teamed up with him, and then he's like, "Call me when you graduate, and I might have work for you." So I started being his road manager for about 3 years right out of college, and that was my introduction to. I was doing shows at the time, but I wasn't really touring. But it was my introduction to the lifestyle of what it's like to be on these longer trips from home, and that's what sold me on. Yeah, I want to play music. I love everything about this lifestyle. So that led me down to starting to tour as I was witnessing what it's like to be, a couple levels ahead and be like, is that what I'm, the life I want to sign up for? And so it took me on the road, and then I've been playing music ever since.
Now, when you first started playing guitar, I should say, was guitar your first instrument?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And
9th grade for Christmas. So I just had an anniversary.
Mom or dad got you the guitar?
Yep. Probably like a $80, $90 guitar that served me well. So, stirred the passion enough to sign me up. Little did they know when they got me that.
Was your family musical?
No. I mean,
that was just something that you wanted, and
siblings and stuff took piano lessons. I was like, no, I'm not interested. I don't know why. Maybe it was rebellion. I was a middle kid, but nobody, people. My sister dabbles with piano, but I didn't grow up around music. Okay. I don't have very many memories of music in the house, which is
so
kind of
no
strange.
Mentor that pushed you towards guitar or into music, huh?
No, I got into guitar on my own through some friends who had guitars before me. My best friend in 8th grade, his dad was a music teacher, and he had bet his son. He said I'd pay him $5 if he learns how to play Wipeout. And so I tried to beat him to those $5. I think we both got paid, and so that was kind of the thing that started it out. Yeah.
Now, when you first started playing guitar, you took lessons from a metal guitarist.
Yeah.
Which, is kind of interesting to me. Was that what you listened to when you first started getting
At the
music?
time, it was, Metallica and Ozzy Osbourne and things like that. And I knew pretty quick that I was not fast. My left hand was not fast. I was not like a lead solo player. Mm-hmm. But I love the feel of the instrument. I love as a rhythm guitar player, which is kind of, I'd go in for these lessons and be like, teach me that one lick, that identifiable lick, so that when you sit down at the music store and you play that one thing, and then there's, people are like, oh, he can play. And you're like, actually, I don't know any the rest of the song. Yeah, I just learned that one thing. So I just kind of spent like a year learning snippets. It was probably a year and a half in before I even learned like a full song. But yeah, and then it because of that guitar instructor, it ended up turning into more of an acoustic, moving to acoustic. He moved into like an acoustic trio band, kind of like a Crosby, Stills, and Nash kind of thing. Then I got an acoustic, and then, yeah.
So would you say you were more, as you started playing, you were originally, other than learning occasional licks, you started out just writing your own music, it sounds like to me. I
wasn't writing until college, but I mean, it was just, I mean, I'd learned like the rhythm parts to play along with records, and high school, I had a couple buddies we'd get together to kind of call ourselves a band that never gigged and rehearsed like once every 3 months just for fun. So it was really kind of, I guess I didn't really start exploring the guitar like by my own motivation outside of the music I was listening to until I saw Michael Hedges when I was in 11th grade. When all of a sudden I just saw like the guitar can do so much more. And so that was the first thing that really made me curious about like what can I find as opposed to what can I learn, like learning another song.
Yeah, and obviously as you did, you saw Hedges open for Crosby, Stills, and Nash.
Yep, it was that same tour.
Stephen Stills is an amazing guitarist on his own, so it's interesting that they would have had Hedges opening for them too. So
yeah,
but that really hit you. That's what like, wow, that's what the guitar can do.
Like, it was the equivalent of my Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show. It was like, I had no idea an instrument could sound like that, let alone these different techniques, and at the same time maintaining this sense of melody and composition as opposed to a bunch of pyrotechnics.
So following up with that, looking at your guitar right now, first of all, what brand is that?
So this is my new incredible Costal guitar. Jason Costal is a builder out of, he lives in Arizona now, but he and I crossed paths over 20 years ago. He was a student at the Wisconsin Conservatory of Music. They have a steel American fingerstyle guitar program, basically to teach contemporary guitar music instead of just classical music. And he was a student there, and I was working for Billy McLaughlin at the time, and Billy would do guest appearances there. And so I think that's how I got brought in, and I played at one of Billy's shows there, and then Jason, followed me for the next 20 years, and through the course of that time, he did all sorts of different things, and eventually became one of the top builders kind of in the world. He studied under Irvin Samoji and these incredible builders, and now he's got an incredible thing on his own. And
so I'm going to have to ask you about your tuning here. It looks pretty unique with 2 capos, and the second capo isn't covering the bottom 2.
Yes. So
or the top 2, I should say.
Yes. So this is part of the pyrotechnics, completely functional, not just pyrotechnics, I guess. So, but it looks cool.
Yeah. Well, what tuning do you use before you even put the capos on?
So I use all sorts of different tunings. I probably, in songs that I've written, I've probably used 12 to 15 that kind of get rotated. And it wasn't until, Michael Hedges kind of ruined me on standard tuning.
Yeah.
I went down the rabbit hole of how many different alter tunes can I use? And then you start to write songs and you do shows and you realize you got to tune between songs and you start to be like, well, I'm not going to use that tuning because I always break a string. So somewhere along the way, I started using partial capos. Everyone's got a standard capo that covers all the strings. Partial capos this one only covers 3 strings. It doesn't cover the low string or the top 2. And it's a way to use standard tuning or other tunings to further expand the voicings that you can get, because certain notes ring past this capo down to this one. So I'm actually in standard tuning now, but it sounds like I'm in the equivalent of like a DAD-GAD tuning. So I'm able to get alter tuning sounds, but still have familiar chord shapes above the capo. So it's a great entry point for people who don't want to retune their guitar but want those more open ringing sounds. And I kind of came at it from the backside. I was like, oh, standard tuning, you can do a lot with that. So now I do a little more in standard tuning, and to me it's a fresh sound.
What are you going to play for us next?
I'm going to do a song that I have I think I've only performed it live once, never on the radio. And I kind of brought it back out of the closet, I guess we could say, as I was searching for. Well, we'll get into like my exploration stuff I've been doing musically, but I found this song. It's a song I wrote a number of years ago while visiting some friends in L.A. They're a duo called Sweet Talk Radio. Tim Burlingame and Catherine Shore. They played down at the Rocky Mountain Folks Festival and such, and dear friends of mine. And I was out there with my daughter, and after we got the kids to bed, we're like, let's write a song. So we wrote this, and I just kind of found it again, like yesterday or the day before. I was like, oh, it's time to bring it out again. Let's give it a try. So it's called Guiding Light.
Time is now, it's what life's about. We gotta live every moment and make it count. For wishes to come true, be the change you need. No one can tell you how, you just got to believe. It's not anywhere outside, it's here waiting to be born. Be a guiding light, be a guiding light. Don't keep what you have inside in the dark anymore. Be a guiding light, the one you've been waiting for. Listen to the voice inside your chest. The truth that you hear will be louder than the rest. Don't take your time, don't think it through. Don't you dare second guess the courage in you. it's not anywhere outside. It's here waiting to be born. Be a guiding light, be a guiding light. Don't keep what you have inside in the dark anymore. Be a guiding light, the one you've been waiting for. And it's never, ever, ever, never, ever, ever too late. You're never too old, never too young to wake up. But I think you know that, I think you know that it's not anywhere outside. It's here waiting to be born. Be a guiding light, be a guiding light. Don't keep what you have inside in the dark anymore. Be a guiding light, the one you've been waiting for. It's not anywhere outside. It's here waiting to be born. Be a guiding light, be a guiding light. Don't keep what you have inside in the dark anymore. Be a guiding light, be a guiding light. Yeah, you gotta believe, gotta believe, gotta believe. Be a guiding light, the one you've been waiting for.
Justin Roth here on KRFC's Live at Lunch. So you and I were talking before the show started here, and the COVID epidemic in 2020 really affected you and influenced the way that you play now and the experimentation that you did. You know, before, for years, you just basically used maybe one or two pedals tops. Now, people can't see your board, but there's definitely 20 plus unique pedals, and I'm sure you spent quite a bit of time on each one before you picked them up.
Yeah, and there's more underneath the deck.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so we're maybe looking at 40.
Yeah, no, well, it doesn't get that. It would. I mean, it's almost ridiculous to carry.
Which you did make a nice special container for all that.
Yeah, so as a fingerstyle folk singer guitar, I've always kind of just traveled with my guitar, my preamp, and a reverb pedal. I just want to control that. It really helps with doing instrumentals and having a little more say in the sound.
Creating the sound yourself on the guitar rather than relying on a
I'm relying on or like a sound engineer that I'm first time in a venue and saying, hey, for this song, can you do this? And for this song, it's like just keeping the control and taking responsibility for what I want it to sound like. So I would bring that, and that would get me what I needed to do for the singer-songwriter type gigs. I will say I got a couple pedals in the last handful of years. I started playing bass with some bands in town here, Lundy Station and Michael Kirkpatrick and Honey Rider Band. So I got a couple pedals for that, but yeah, I still didn't really even know how to use them. I was just like, oh, it'll be fun to have some other sounds. And then once the pandemic hit, I started to dream up kind of things that when I'm gigging, I just keep doing what I do. Like I go out and play the songs that I know. And it was very rare that I was actually home to just like, well, if you had nothing but time, what else are you curious about that you never make the time for?
Why not expand your horizons, learn some new things, try and create new sounds?
So I started to kind of dream up what these other sounds that I was hearing that are outside of the realm of my typical singer-songwriter type stuff. You know, some of that was kind of on that first song with kind of weird effects and so I started to dream it up, not having years of using pedal boards and going through different pedals. I kind of reverse engineered it. I was like, you know, what's this whole palette that I want to have? And over the course of a year or so, I kind of got all these things, and then I had to get the pedal board that was the right size, which is also good limitation to kind of say you have to stop, like no more.
Your pocketbook's thanking you.
Yeah, and my back. So it was kind of coming at it from like it's like a Bob Ross picking his colors, you know. Oh yeah. He goes, I'm not sure what I'm going to paint yet, but these are the colors I like, and I'm still learning what it is that I'm trying to paint. But it just opened my ear to a different thing. And with the pandemic, I was able to have this set up at home. Normally, if you're shuffling it back and forth, it's not too easy to like experiment because you got to set everything up. So I just left everything set up, which and just led me down the path of trying new things and just sitting on headphones and finding new sounds and learning how to tap dance, to control
and
it all.
not lose your balance as you
Yeah.
reach for the pedal. Well, it's not like you're relying on them now, but you're using them to, like you say, color your palette.
Yeah, I'm using it to color the palette, and I'm learning how to do it judiciously. I'm learning. I think there's other guitar players who've been using pedals for a long time, and it's like, being out here, it's my first radio interview since the pandemic, and first time I've used this pedal board in a radio interview, just learning how it travels and what I'm hearing. And when you sit at home with headphones, it's one thing, and then you bring out in the real world, and you got to make sure that it's traveling well.
I'm going to ask you a quick question about how did you originally get into, you've toured with some big names, Tommy Emmanuel, obviously played on the same stages as Shawn Colvin, Lucy Kaplansky, Peter Yarrow, Peter Paul and Mary. a lot of big names. How'd that happen? How'd you get into being able to share stages and perform with those artists?
Well, a lot of good graces of really great people. I think as a young artist going out and touring and playing coffee shops for $25 and a free bagel only gets you so far. But I think it started when I was working with Billy McLaughlin, who was an artist at that next level with the record deal. I got to meet a lot of people, got to meet a lot of venue owners, like the venues that I could not get into on my own. But it showed me how those venues work. Two, introduced me to some of the right people that I could follow up with because they knew who I was as Billy's roadie. And, then to seek openers, to say, like, I don't have an audience there, but, send a demo, and if they're like, oh, that's a good fit, then I'd get some openers. And eventually it's kind of a weird, here's a back way of coming into it, was there was a folk booking agency, Fleming Tamulevich, way back from Michigan, and they eventually split, these two agents. And the one agent, we had a mutual friend. He was trying to learn a new computer program to manage all his contacts, and this mutual friend knew that's the same program that I use for booking all my shows. So she put us in touch so I could do like IT tech for him over the phone to tell him how to organize this database.
Create a relationship.
Yeah. And so it was not me going, hey, will you give me an opportunity?
Yeah, knocking on the door.
So a couple months later, we meet up at Folk Alliance, and he's like, I want to come see your set, your showcase. So he came, and he's like, let's go out for breakfast. Sat down at breakfast, and he books John Gorka, Lucy Kaplansky, and a whole slew of, that was the agency that split. That was like kind of the biggest
top shelf folkies.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, over breakfast, he's like, have you ever thought of opening for John Gorka? And I was like, well, yeah.
Thought about it.
And he's like, well, how about this? I'll give you a pass. You contact them on your own, and you can send them to me if they want to verify it. So just that act alone sent me on a mission I followed John's schedule, and anytime that I knew that I could find him, get a show or two, I would book tours around it.
Like within 100 miles or whatever?
Oh, I went to Alaska with John.
Oh, geez.
David had to help.
So literally any show that he had in
Yeah, I played with, I've probably done, I haven't counted, but probably at least 3 dozen shows with John, from Alaska to New York. And
did you pick up anything from him? Did your own thing and he did his own thing?
We did separate sets, and sometimes he'd bring me up to sing harmony on a tune at the end. Mm-hmm. But I've learned a ton from him as a songwriter. I was a fan of his, in college. So I used to work the door when he'd come and play a venue in my college town. So opening for John led to Ellis Paul and Lucy Kaplansky and these other people. So then as soon as I had a roster of people that I'd opened for, and I contact a venue about a different person that's not represented by David, but they all know him, I could say, it's not his agent, but you can contact him. And a lot of times they're like, oh, if you've got approval, all right, you're in.
Plus you could throw in, I just opened for John Gorka.
Yeah. I didn't get freebies, but it was definitely like this,
You didn't have to necessarily hire your own agency to get those bookings.
Yeah, it was just somebody like him vouching for me opened a lot of doors. And so I went down that avenue of doing a lot of openers, and it was really great for getting exposure in places I didn't have an audience.
Well, it's good.
And it was back in the days when people bought CDs, so it was great.
What are the next two you're going to play for us today?
Let's see. I'm going to do an instrumental tune called Bag Shot Row.
Bag Shot Row. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And it's a Hobbit-inspired name. And then I'm going to play a tune by David Olney called Deeper Well.
Deeper Well. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
All right.
Justin Roth.
Are we on? There we are. Okay. That's Bagshot Row. All right, this next tune is a David Olney tune. It's a song that's been around for a long time, and a lot of people covered it, including Emmylou Harris and the Waylon Jennys. And but I first heard it doing Songwriter on the Round with Liz Barnez down at the Magic Rat. And it was we always try to find a song at the end of the night that everyone can play together, and that's easy to learn in a day. And this was a one-chord song for the most part, and everyone got to take a verse, and I fell in love with the song. And so once I got these pedals, I started to experiment with it and see what else I can do with it, just me. And this is what I came up with. Sunburned hard, burned my eyes, burned so hard I thought I'd died. Thought I'd died and gone to hell, looking for the water from a deeper well. So I went to the river, but the river was dry. Fell to my knees and I looked to the sky. Looked to the sky and the spring rain fell. I drank the water from a deeper well.
Well, 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 I drank the water from a deeper well. Fell in love like a baby child, fell in and I fell for a smile. Smile turned bitter and I touched it cold. Could not keep what I could not hold. So I ran with the moon and I ran with the night, and the three of us made a terrible sight. We hoard and we gambled with the money we'd steal, looking for the water from a deeper well. Well, 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 I drank the water from a deeper well. Well, the moon got weak and soon he was gone, and the night got sick and he died with the dawn. Died with the dawn with a drink in his hand, too sick to walk, too drunk to stand. Time stood still, but I ran wild, and I got my fill with a crooked smile. Woke up on the floor of a jailhouse cell, looking for the water, looking for the water from a deeper well. Well, 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 I drank the water from a deeper well. Sunburned high, burned my eyes, burned so high, I thought I'd died. Thought I'd died and gone to hell, looking for the water from a deeper well. So I went to the river, but the river was dry. I fell to my knees and I looked to the sky. I looked to the sky and the spring rain fell. I drank the water. Yeah, I drank the water from a deeper well. Well, 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 I drank the water from a deeper well. Well, 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 I drank the water from a deeper well.
Justin Roth here on KRFC's Live at Lunch. Yeah, that looper, that opens up a whole new world, doesn't it?
It does. It creatively and logistically. It sends my brain for a loop.
Yeah.
I will say.
Well, it's difficult to coordinate. Singing, playing, looping. Remembering when to shut things off and restart them, and it's a huge process, I'm sure.
So what I've loved about this is because I realized as a touring artist and making albums and always having like an album to sell and want to play songs from the record, I felt like I spent many years doing that and for good reason and with a lot of reward. But I realized I worked so much on refining what I'd already created that it was really hard to kind of separate and go back to that beginner's mind to get into writing again or trying something different.
Create a new avenue.
Yeah, as opposed to like keep doing what you're doing. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I think I got to a point where I realized, and I think what opened my eyes to it was during the pandemic, doing some like at the beginning where everyone's scrambling to figure out how to do live stream concerts. And we get your tech set up so it sounds decent, and you do it a couple times, and you're reading this little screen of little comments and the ticker of how many people are watching. And my takeaway from it was I didn't miss the playing of the songs. I missed what happens between the songs with an audience, and before the show and after the show, like the whole thing. But I realized, I don't know if my time is best spent just playing the songs I already know for a virtual audience that I don't really know if they're there. It wasn't feeding me in the same way. So I think what I started to do was I was exploring some. Somebody turned me on to Twitch, which is another streaming platform. Usually a lot of gamers on it, but there's a lot of music on it as well. And I found people who were streaming their practice. Literally, some people, like classical guitar players, just running drills. Like,
Scales
it was
and
not
things.
a show. It was just, and then they would chat with people that would type in, because they'd have viewers watching this. And I was like, it just was like, there's a process.
Interaction between audience and performers.
There's
during
interaction.
the times of COVID or whatever. Huh?
Yeah, and working on becoming better at what you do. And so it really kind of excited me, where I was like, well, maybe I'll try that. So I started live streaming my practice on Twitch. And my handle is at Justin Roth Music, if any of you are on Twitch. But and it's what I kind of vowed to do is that I don't play anything that I know.
Okay.
So I basically keep myself in this state of unease to it by choice, and lowered sense of confidence that I can nail this. Because it's the process that goes on behind the scenes with any songwriter, anyone who's working on anything, music, art. And I was like, there's a process that I think, well, it was less about whether or not I thought it would be interesting to some people. I thought it was interesting that I found other people that were doing it. But to me, it was great freedom to say, people drop in and ask questions about guitar. I have some of those conversations that I would normally have at shows. But at no point do I feel pressure or allow myself to say, oh, there's a bunch of people here, play a ringer, or play something to impress them. It's just like, well, here's what I do. I make stuff up. So it was a perfect place for me to experiment with the pedals and looping, learning, failing, going, oh, it didn't work, and you start over again. It's a little less awkward than doing it in front of an audience,
Well, but
if you have to
are getting
restart.
some motivation to improve yourself and play good and expand yourself, but with an audience.
Yeah, there's accountability there,
Yeah.
but without a ton of responsibility in terms of like, oh, I just ruined the show. You're like, well, it's not actually a show. It's just practice. I'm here to make mistakes, because if I'm not making mistakes, it means I'm not trying things that push me. So it's gone everywhere from the pedals and looping to like instrumental improv, not like lead guitar, like ripping solos, because I still don't have that, but I'm making up melodies and playing over loops. So to me, it's super exciting, because I've experienced more growth in the last 2 years and played more guitar at home than I have in 20 years, because I used to just play it on the road, come home, book, have the next tour, and maybe work on a new
Put
song.
that away and just
then I
relax at
go
home.
again and do more of what I already knew. So
Getting back to your playing,
Yeah.
I know you don't use a pick, and I know
not
you're
often.
using your thumb, you're picking, you're doing, I guess maybe the Michael Hedges influences are coming out there or whatever, but you're using your hands in unique ways to create sounds that maybe the normal person with a pick would not be doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, for lack of a better term, it's just called fingerstyle. Sometimes primarily it's because you're picking out individual notes. You learn, even in folk music, you learn finger picking patterns. Fingerstyle, it tends to try to go beyond that, where you're actually picking out melodies and separate bass lines, but not quite. Like classical guitar is fingerstyle, but this is, they say it's like American fingerstyle or American steel string fingerstyle or something.
Flat picking?
Yeah, it's because I've always played solo. It's about trying to cover not all the bases, but realizing, again, thanks to Michael Hedges, that this is a melody instrument. It's a chordal instrument. It's a bass instrument. It's a percussive instrument. Like, not wanting to overdo it, but how many things can you do if it reinforces the song? And that's kind of been my motivation to find other ways to make the guitar more expressive, and fingerstyle gives me that option.
You can be your own band.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't need to drag along 5 other guys.
Yeah, I've got a bass player right here.
Yeah, exactly. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this?
All right, well, this is called a harp guitar. It's built right here in Fort Collins by a good friend of mine named Ronnie Owens. And I had been wanting one of these for years. I first saw Hedges play one, probably back in, I think it was 91, and where I had no idea what it was. But these have been around, these kind of instruments have been around since the 1800s. They were commonly used in parlor music, say like a mandolin quartet all dressed in tuxedos in a big mansion, and somebody would be accompanying them on one of these to play the chords and the bass notes. So Ronnie builds guitars. One time we were talking, started talking about harp guitars, and he just said, how about I build you one? It's like, whoa. And there's a couple companies out there that make them, but you never see them hanging on a wall at a guitar store. So the opportunity to play them is pretty few and far between. So he had never played one. He had never held one when he started to build this. And I love it. And so now this is another thing like the looping. It's my right hand used to be pretty comfortable on the guitar. Now it's like, you want me to do what? So this is part of what me being here today too, is like, I want to play things that I'm not 100% confident on, as kind of like a continuation of what I do on Twitch. I've been living the last 2 years not doing things that I'm super comfortable with, and with the effort or the intention to push me.
So you get to be your own bass
and
player.
And potentially fall on my face.
I don't think it'll happen. But you've got to be your own bass player and rhythm guitarist at the same time here.
Yeah, so this has got a standard guitar up on the neck, and then these 6 sub bass strings are just strung like a harp. You tune them to pitch, and then you don't fret them or anything. You just got your notes in front of you, what you set them as. And then you try to play the right ones at the right time.
Okay, Justin Roth here on KRFC's Live at Lunch.
All right. This is called Now You Know. I've lost it. Can you help me find? I've lost it. Can you help me find? I could be so blind, I let it slip my mind. Now who knows just where it goes? I am Thor without the rose, and I've lost it, and I want it back. I've lost it, and I want it back. Clouds don't ask why, they just give up the rain, but this won't fall from the sky. And tears from my eyes won't help at all. Can you find it in your heart and be true? That's the hardest part. Like the fading star, peeking right through this dark night. Thought it'd go, but within
keep me warm. Even though you are sun and I am snow, I am one, but with you much more. And I need you so. Now you know, now you know.
Justin Roth on Live at Lunch here at KRFC 88.9 FM. I'd like to thank the sound and video crew today, Colton Boening and Andy Howes, Matt Mosher on the audio, and Chris Winslow, Eric Delano, and Jeremy Smith on the video. Got a frog in my throat today. They say it's humid, but it sure feels dry to me.
Yeah, it's Colorado humid.
It's
Still doesn't
Colorado
feel,
humid, exactly.
Still feels dry.
All right. So that was beautiful, by the way. And so how long have you had this now?
It's a couple years now. Well, it's even more than that. I don't remember the year. It might have been. It was actually before COVID. So, you know, the last 2 years or whatever, kind of a void. They kind of forget. Yeah, shortly before COVID.
What's the best place for people to obtain information about upcoming shows, how to obtain your music? You know, everybody says, oh, all the streaming platforms, but where would you like people to go and...
Yeah, well, it is on all streaming platforms where I can, you know, where pennies a song roll in, but justinroth.com is my official website. That's where it's got information about. I do teach guitar lessons, kind of other things that I've started to do during the pandemic, teaching lessons and shows when I've got them. There's nothing on the books right now. I'm dad right now, and so I don't tour in the same way that I used to. Usually it's touring around family trips and such. But I'll have some stuff going on locally coming up in the next few months. And,
spring, summer.
Yeah, and then it's got links to Twitch if you're interested in the practice thing, or just how. It's not, again, it's sometimes less about watching what I'm doing and more just like people want to talk shop, and I always love doing that. So that's kind of the place to
Speaking of that, are you collaborating? You'd mentioned you're playing with a couple other local artists here, doing some bass and things. Are you working on any new music?
Well, so the crazy thing is I'm writing more songs than I ever have.
Yeah.
However, they're not as me as an artist. I'm doing this program called Kid Pan Alley. It's songwriting in schools with kids. And I started doing this with, this program's been around for about over 25 years. It started by a friend of mine named Paul Reisler. He's an incredible musician and songwriter based out in Virginia. And he started this program. Since he started it, he's written almost 3,000 songs with over 80,000 children.
Wow.
All across the country. And so he brought me on board shortly before the pandemic. I did a couple local ones here at Laurel and Irish elementary schools. And then the pandemic hit. And then he reworked out how they do everything, and they got themselves set up to do it entirely virtually in schools that were still interested in doing the program. So we would go in, I'd be at home in Fort Collins, he'd be in Virginia. The kids, we did a lot of schools in Greeley and Fort Collins. Sometimes they were in their classroom. Sometimes when they were still at home, kids are at home on their computers. And they all, basically the process, it's really amazing when I first started doing this with Paul, seeing how he does it. kids come up with ideas like, what do you want to write about? We come up with a big list. Then we vote on it, pick the one that wins. Then we're like, okay, well, let's brainstorm that idea. So we brainstorm, get all these different images and thoughts that it reminds us of. And then we say, let's write a first line. And the kids raise their hand and they come up with 3 lines and we vote on the top one to be our starting line. Like, okay, that's the first line. What do we say next? And and then once we get a section written, then we say, okay, we talk about rhythm and melody and all this stuff. And then we ask for somebody to sing it. And many times a brave soul will raise their hand and they'll just make up a melody. And then Paul or I will find where the chords that support what they're doing and come up with 3 different chord progressions, that'll support what they just sang, the one line. And then they vote on that. Which one do you like best? And once we have that, we're like, okay, that's the vein we're in. Who can sing the next line? And we're literally just following their melodies and then harmonizing afterwards. And in the 2 class periods, we come up with an entire song with a concert at the end of the week. Typically, it would be an in-person concert, where the kids actually come. I make demos of the songs. They practice them at home or in the classroom, and then we do a concert for their parents at night. So we did all virtual concerts. Like, it would just be me in my studio singing to all the parents and teachers, or the kids in the classrooms projected on a big screen. So so I've been writing a ton of songs with kids, and got some coming up. We're going to be at Laurel Elementary in a couple weeks. We'll be at Tavelli and Irish, another school down in Lyons, and some schools out in Greeley throughout the rest of this spring. So that's the new music that I've been working on.
Talk about democracy in music. You do this, you vote. You do this, you vote.
And to do it in 2 hours, there's no rewriting. So it's like finding the heart or the soul of what this song is about after you have like only a handful of lines. And so Paul and I have to kind of like sift through to kind of go, okay, this is kind of our message. So it doesn't become like, my dog runs outside and, he likes to slide. Like we find the heart of it. And then the kids, come up with these incredible lines. They're like the best songwriters, co-writers, because they're like uninhibited. They'll say a thing that an adult may not say, or say something unique in a way that we might not say it. And you're like,
their perspective is totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when we did this throughout the pandemic, kids were writing about loneliness, isolation, can't wait to get back to school, all this stuff. And we released a CD during the pandemic of all songs that we had written with kids during the pandemic.
And that's available on your website?
Not directly on mine, but at kidpanalley.org, that's more information about them. And that's it. One of the songs that I wrote with some 6th graders became the title track of that record, called Maybe by Next Year. All about, wondering what it's going to be like next year.
Well, I think we've got time for one more song.
Okay.
What would you like to play?
Well, I'll
switch guitars?
Yes, I'm going to switch guitars.
Okay.
Let's see. Why don't I play the song that I wrote with 6th graders from Greeley?
Right. And that
It's called Maybe by Next Year.
Maybe by Next Year. Okay. While we have a little bit of time, I'd like to remind all of our viewers today that you can always go to KRFC RadioVision on YouTube and check out all the wonderful artists that we've had over the last year and everything that we'll have in the future too. And you can check out your favorite artists, check their videos out. And you can also very easily click on the subscribe button when you're there online and at the YouTube channel, because it'll give you a notification each week of who this week's Live at Lunch artist is, and give you a chance to just watch the wonderful video. Thanks for coming in today, Justin.
David, thank you so much for having me. This is a real treat, and thank you for what everyone here at KRFC does, the tech staff, the programming staff, the music director, all that stuff. It's incredible to have a station like this in our town, and we are grateful, and the opportunities like this that you provide for musicians is a real treat. So thank you. All right, this is Maybe by Next Year, written with some 6th graders from Chapelot Middle School in Greeley.
Maybe by next year I'll be able to see your smile, I'll be able to see your frown. Maybe by then the world won't be turned upside down. Maybe we'll have a party, and maybe things will be just fine. Maybe we can have it all if we just make it through this time. Maybe if we just imagine we could laugh about this year, be grateful for what we've got. Maybe our life will be better, maybe, maybe not. Perhaps the world will pull together and Rona will fade away. Maybe we'll be back in school and see each other every day. So many souls were lost, it's been a hard road to master. But if we keep our fingers crossed, we'll learn from this disaster. I know by next year I'll be able to see your smile, we'll be able to get together. Maybe by then the world will just be a whole lot better. We'll be laughing in this new world and hanging out with our friends. We'll dance and sing and smile again. You can't wait till this year ends. Maybe by next year, maybe by next year, maybe by next year, I'll be able to see your smile.
Thank you for listening to Live at Lunch, and thank you to the Music District here in the heart of Fort Collins, Colorado. Live at Lunch is produced by KRFC 88.9 FM in the Ginger and Baker studio. If you'd like to appear on Live at Lunch, email our music director, David Vacek, at david@krfcfm.org.